The Cardinals go 5-1 on the week. They beat the Reds in the series, fall 4-1 today, Sunday afternoon, but Andrew Abbott was exceptional like always. So all in all, a good week for the Cardinals, who have bounced back accordingly just in time for a big NL Central showdown against their rivals, the Chicago Cubs. Welcome back to Cardinal Territory. Katie and Bernie back at you. So full disclosure, I was not with the team again this weekend, some weird scheduling going on, but I will be mostly back to normal starting tomorrow. I did watch both the games, though, Saturday and Sunday. And I have to say, some days you just get beat and you tip your cap to Andrew Abbott. He was exceptional. All in all, though, I loved this week for the Cardinals. I thought they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Bernie, what about you?
No, I'm with you. And the thing about it, we always talk about how this team competes and how it fights and how it battles and all that stuff. And they really had a battle for, well, the doubleheader in Chicago. They had a battle for like every inch of that to get 2 wins out of there, right? And then, Friday night's game that went over the Reds, that was like what was it? That was like a 1-0 game going into the 7th inning. That one could have gotten away. And then Saturday, which was just one of those Cardinals classics, they just keep having these crazy games. That was an incredible game. But obviously, that one probably should have gone the other way. So They continue to win some games where it's hanging in the balance. It could easily slip away. Now, during their bad stretch, they kind of did let that happen a little bit, but they've kind of buckled up again, and they're winning these close games, and they're making stuff happen, and they just won't stop coming at the other team. I mean, just won't stop. And so they're kind of fun to watch. But yeah, a 5-1 record after that disastrous stretch they'd been through, yeah, I think that's a good way to come out of the Milwaukee series and all the stuff that happened before that. And now we look forward to the Cubs and Cardinals. It's nice of Major League Baseball to finally let these teams play,
89 days. It's been 89 days of the season before the Cardinals and Cubs first meet. But I guess we'll make up for it because they are actually the last series of the regular season as well. 3 games at Wrigley, game 160, 161, and 162. So I guess it will all even out in the end on the drama scale, but I'm super excited to see what this Cardinals and Cubs series looks like. The good news about the loss for the Cardinals today is they didn't lose any ground in the NL Central to the Cubs. They remain 4.5 games out. A lot can change within the standings in a 4-game series as well. And it seems like the Cardinals should, this is not official, well, he's going to start Tuesday, but they haven't said it, so I'm putting should. We'll start Michael McGreevy on Tuesday. They will have Matthew Liberatore start the series on Monday. Slot in McGreevy on June 24th, which was the day he was eligible to be recalled from Memphis. And then should be Eric Fedde on Wednesday, Andre Palante on Thursday. On the Cubs side, we'll have a preview of this on The Athletic with our Cubs writers and Northside Territory host Patrick Mooney and Sada
They're great.
Sorry, I am on fumes today.
No, that's all right. No, they're great. The 2 guys that cover the Cubs for The Athletic, outstanding.
They're awesome.
They're
love
outstanding
working with them.
That'll be great. I can't wait to watch that.
Yes, and what Sada wrote over the weekend is that Shota is coming back. He's been on the injured list for about 6 weeks, so he should start either Wednesday or Thursday. So some good pitching matchups for the Cardinals and Cubs. I, for one, though, am very excited to see Michael McGreevy. It just goes to show what happens on this podcast. When we demand something, it happens. So don't doubt our power here. Isn't that right, Bernie?
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got a pretty good track record in that part, even going all the way back to where we're saying, no. Herrera's got to be the DH because he's the best bet you have. So, and that Ali went along because he listened to us, of course, and I'm saying that facetiously. But no, where everybody's banging on the McGreevy drum, it's good. It's just good to see him get another chance right away. And then Sajaysi's up here. You did a good job breaking down in The Athletic, like what that meant, the Herrera injury and going on the IL, and then Sajaysi coming up. So, yeah, we're seeing, you and I were talking about, look, Dolan Gorman's improved his play to something. He's got to play more. He has been playing more. Not plug in and play. Ozzy's still pretty selective, but at least he's, I think at least Gorman's making some progress. And Jordan Walker hasn't since he came back and he's sort of relapsed again. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off in all these different areas, but Yeah, it'll be good to see McGreevy, and it'll be good to see the Cubs are, I think, a really smart organization. It'll be really good to see if they've got a game plan against them that may be better than some other teams have had against them.
And I wonder if this could be a statement, not that he needs to make any more, but a statement performance for McGreevy, because it's clear the Cardinals lined up their schedule dating back to the Dodgers spot start of when they could use McGreevy again, and they wanted him to pitch against Chicago, because that just goes to show how important, even in wow, we're almost late June. In late June, how important the series is for both teams. I mean, the Cardinals wanted one of their best arms to go against the Cubs. The fact that one of their best arms is in AAA, not great, as we discussed on the last episode, but this was something they wanted to see. They love the way McGreevy attacks, how he keeps his composure. It's going to be a competitive series, and I like that they are turning to McGreevy here to take at least one of these starts. We'll see if he does well. I'm not quite sure what the Cardinals can do from there, because we've talked about the depth issues and, trying to keep the rotation healthy. Maybe they use him one more time. We'll see. But anytime you carry a 6-man rotation, you lose a valuable spot in the bullpen. So lots to juggle here, but McGreevy can help his own cause once again with a strong outing against the Cubbies. So hopefully he does that. But Bernie, you and I have some things to discuss, starting
Sure.
with Iván Herrera. We have just one ad read for you all today. So we'll be back with you in 60 seconds after we hear from Arena Club. And then we'll talk about the Iván Herrera injury and what that means going forward. And most importantly, who should step up?
Kratz, real question for you. So I'm in Arena Club and I opened up a slab pack. I pulled a Wyatt Langford auto rookie card. I got an immediate offer from Arena Club. I turned it down. It was in the mid 300s range. I've gotten a few offers since. Thoughts on Wyatt? Should I hold on?
I saw it. I didn't see it when you ripped the pack, but it looks so sick with everything around it and how it's spinning in your showroom. That John looked nice. But no, you shouldn't sell it. Maybe wait till he makes an all-star or two, and all of a sudden that 300 goes up, and you're going to get another instant offer right away on Arena Club.
That's right. Buy, sell, trade. Slab packs are there for you too, to rip a pack. And for me, I'm just leaving it in the showroom for now. I'm deciding what I'm going to do with it. But if I did want to sell it, then I can get myself another slab pack or buy a card that I want to buy. Get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/Val. Use code FOUL.
All right, so in case you missed it, you didn't. Iván Herrera hit the injured list for the second time this season ahead of Friday's game with a grade 2 left hamstring strain. Cardinals gave a very vague timeline, 2 to 6 weeks. When they first said that, I said, that's not a timeline. That's literally could mean anything. But based on every hamstring is different, every athlete's different, obviously. But based on the average recovery time, you're looking at roughly around 4 to 6 weeks without Iván Herrera. So hopefully, it's sooner than that. But there's no doubt about it, Bernie. I mean, that's a devastating blow for St. Louis's lineup. You lose your most impactful bat. What Herrera wasn't able to do offensively changed the Cardinals' season. So now you need some guys to step up. And we saw one already who looks poised to do so. Mr. Alec Burleson just continues to rake. If you're going to lose Herrera, but you get this version of Burleson playing every day, well, I don't think you're losing that much from an overall team offensive production standpoint. Of course, you wish it could be both. But if you're looking at guys to start carrying the weight without Herrera, I'm looking at Burleson, and he's done a really nice job so far.
He has, and he has really been on a roll. It's easy to sort of, it's an understandable thing to look just at recent stats because he's been really hot lately. But I started a little bit like starting late April because he went on a tear like third week of April or so. And then I went back because I remember that date in my mind. April 22nd is when he started to hit, okay? Because he was really bad early. So going into today, and he had an O for today because Abbott was outstanding. But going into today, Alec Burleson was leading the National League in batting average since April the 22nd. That's 2 months ago. It was like a 346 average, and his slugging percentage was well into the 500s. It was something like 570 or something. Like he was, like top 6 or 7 in all these different hitting categories. So my point is, it's like it's beyond like, oh, he's swinging really well. He's one of the best hitters in the National League over the last 2 months. So you have said this all along, and you've kind of staked out the reporting position on this, that Burleson has moved up ahead of Gorman in the pecking order. And there is not there now that Burleson is hitting left-handed pitching, what a bonus. And he's good at it. I can't see really budging him out of the lineup because you can't really even say, well, boy, he's hitting 180 against lefties. That's no longer the case. I think he's fine defensively. Has he done anything defensively where you just go like, oh, shield your eyes? It's not graceful, but especially if he's in left field. Well, if he's in the corner, I think his defense is fine for a guy hitting like that. Yeah.
And, he's actually a really good first baseman, and I know we say that as a surprise, but that's the position he played growing up and in college, so it's really not that much of a surprise. We just haven't seen it very often because the Cardinals have had Paul Goldschmidt, Wilson Contreras at first base. So when Burleson's at first, he's very solid defensive first baseman, and he's gotten better in the outfield. But it's a good point because we get so caught up defensively on this team, and rightfully so, because their defense really anchored them for the first 10 weeks of the season. But Alec Burleson has made strides defensively and, is right around league average, maybe a little lower, sure. But what he's doing with the bat more than makes up for it. How many corner outfielders do you know around baseball that have slugged their way into their position in the batter's box, not from their defense? And if we want to put Alec Burleson in that, I'm totally fine with it. I talked to Ollie Marmol on Friday, that one day this week that I showed up to work, about what he was going to do with Herrera out indefinitely, Thomas Saggese up, Memphis, and how he was going to balance the playing time. Saggese's going to be the bench piece, right? And that's not to say that he won't start some games. We saw today he'll get the start against the lefty. Andrew Abbott, that's probably a good guy to sit Nootbaar, Scott, and Gorman against. The fact that Burleson, to your point, got the start today, I think speaks to where he is in the pecking order as well. But Saggese will be the bench depth, and you can give different guys different days off because he's versatile in the infield. And Ollie Marmol said that he wants to give the guys that have been here already the opportunity. So he's referring to Gorman and Burleson, the exact quote, "The priority is the guys that have been here more so than the guy who's getting here. An opportunity in an undesirable way has presented itself, but I think the guys that have been waiting for their opportunity should get it." And I think Burleson over Gorman right now is going to see more playing time. There is a way still to play Nolan Gorman and Alec Burleson, Jordan Walker almost every day. One of them is going to sit, given the game. That's just the nature of the lineup. But there's a way to do it where you can maximize the matchups and what the probability, what the odds are, so that everyone's getting some rest and it's put in the best possible way to succeed. I think Ollie Marmol and Daniel Descalso have done a nice job doing so. But I'm with you. I think as much as I would like to see Gorman play every day, if you're going to play a lefty, regardless of handedness every day, based on how he's hitting the ball right now, it's Alec Burleson. And for a long time, there was some reluctancy to pitch him or to hit him against lefty pitchers. And I got it. The Major League stat line did not back it up. But like you correctly pointed out, Bernie, it's been a lot better. I asked Ollie about that as well. If it's easier to play these two, or now that they're hitting well, and if there's any kind of reluctancy or hesitancy to have such a lefty-heavy lineup. And Ollie said that Gorman has shown over time that he can handle lefties. It's more so if his swing is right, when he's feeling good. I don't think it's a matter of handedness. Where Burleson is showing us that he can stay in there really well against lefties right now. And if he's showing that, keep playing him.
Right. And with Herrera out, there's going to be plenty of room to play Gorman more, I'm not going to say every day because we just talked about that. He won't play every day. But he should be fairly regular in the lineup with as long as Herrera is out. And I think it's interesting too with Burleson being as outstanding as he's been for the last 2 months, and his ability to hit lefties. I wonder what that does for their overall outfield production, because it's not good. If you take and this doesn't count guys that have played multiple positions. It's just outfield production, guys actually playing the game in the lineup as an outfielder. And the Cardinals offense has been out of the outfield's been really mediocre, way below average, I would say. And so they have a situation now. If the playing time is going to be more of an earned thing based on results, conceivably you could see Nootbaar in left a lot and Burleson in right field a lot, or vice versa. And they have to stick with Victor Scott in center field. They need his defense, but it could mean less time for Jordan Walker, for example. And we don't have to jump the gun on that, but I'm just saying, since he came back, off the IL. I think he's 2 for 18. He doesn't look it at the plate. So when you have all these good choices, it's an interesting situation. When you have all these good choices, like, well, how would you rate him about, okay, all right, this guy, like, if I'm going to put him in order, who belongs in the lineup more often, right? I think there'd be a few guys ahead of Walker, but we'll see what happens there, because they're obviously, this runway season was designed for him and Gorman primarily. So, but at some point you got to hit, right?
Yeah, I think you and I are in the same boat right now. We're not yet ready to have a deeper discussion on Jordan Walker because it's only been, a week and a half since he's been back from the IL. But at some point, you are going to have to start weighing, especially if the Cardinals keep up their play where they are contenders, which is more important, runway or results. And again, you and I are not yet there on Jordan Walker, but I think we will both be monitoring his play over the next week or so. For me, have set a deadline of the first game in Pittsburgh, I believe, is June 30th, a Monday. If the Cardinals they still look like they're going to be contenders in the division, because right now they still look like they could contend for the division. And who knows? Things will get crazy over the next 4 days, and maybe we're having an entirely different conversation if they're 8.5 games out. But on June 29th, if the Cardinals are still in play for the division, I think the focus should turn to results. And I'm not saying totally skip the runway. Not at all. That's not the point of the season. But it's the exact opposite, actually. When I say turn to results, it means play the players, the young players that are performing right now, regardless of who you identified as your top priorities at the start of the season. Because this runway season still applies to guys like Alec Burleson. This runway season still applies to Lars Nootbaar. So if these guys and Nootbaar looks a lot better lately.
Yeah.
If these guys are the players that are performing, and we talked about this with Herrera too before he went on the IL, you can still accomplish the runway season just with different players. So I'm not quite there yet. We'll have this discussion again around this time next week. But for so many reasons, I'm looking at this Cubs series and then what the Cardinals can do against a very good Cleveland team over the weekend which should be a crazy month. I can't believe it's almost July, Bernie. Are you ready to be just bombarded with trade deadline overload for the next 4 weeks?
It's been going on. Well, it's been nonstop. Whatever is above the level that you would have at the top, where you just say, okay, this is the insanity level. Whatever's higher than insanity level, that's where it'll go. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not prepared.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question, because this very much is relevant, although Iván Herrera is not going to be in the picture for a few weeks at least. But there's been a pushback. I've noticed, like Cardinal media talking about people that I actually respect, who writes stuff on the Cardinals blogs and whatnot. And there's been a big, this is an interesting thing. Said, listen, no. They're not getting any offense out of catcher. People are pointing out all the pass balls, all the wild pitches, all the bad blocking metrics for Pages and Pozo. And they're saying, look, when he gets back, Iván Herrera's got to be the catcher. You got to play him at catcher, and then it frees it up for these other guys. Ali would have more flexibility at DH and all this other stuff. Now, you could make a baseball argument if you want to do that. You could make a baseball argument, right? And I do agree that I'm a little surprised by how sloppy those other two guys are behind the plate, as far as, just not getting their middle and stuff that they should get their mid on. But here's what they don't understand. I'm a big believer in, you make your point, you make your case, but if a manager is absolutely determined and he is not even considering removing Pages as the regular catcher because of the way he handles the pitching staff and the way he runs a game and his pitch selection and all this stuff, we can all talk about from a baseball standpoint. Well, they ought to do this. If the manager is 100% committed to Pages, you're wasting your breath and you're wasting your fingers typing stuff like this. And I'm not saying that to demean anybody, but I'm just saying I don't think it's going to happen. Now, do you think it could happen where he would, in fact, catch more when he comes back?
I don't. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised about Pages defensively lately, because I thought he made strides earlier in the season, and he's never been like an all-star defensive catcher. But what sets him apart from Herrera and Pozo, which, quick shout out to Pozo, we're going to get to him later in the episode.
Yeah.
Don't let me forget. But what sets him apart is his game calling and his preparation. The game calling situation and the preparation and knowing your pitchers is where Pedro shines. And there's not a good stat that I can send Cardinals fans to go look up. It doesn't exist. I have to go based off what every pitcher in that clubhouse has told me about how much they enjoy throwing to Pedro and what the coaching staff has said, what Dusty Blake has said, Ollie Marmol. And I trust those conversations. I'm not in the dugout, obviously, to see what Pedro does for each call or how he commands the game. But when you look at how this rotation has overperformed, a lot of it is health and monitoring schedule, as we've talked about all year. But a lot of it is also trusting your catcher, and they really trust Pedro. So that's why you're going to see him out there behind the plate continuously. And I'm not sure Herrera is going to get that opportunity again this season. He'll still catch a little bit because the Cardinals would like to see what he could do. But it reminds me of a conversation we had on Friday, and I'm looking up the transcript right now because I want to make sure I get it right. Randy Carricker, our pal at STL Sports Hub, had asked a really good question to Ollie on if there was any chance that a couple of guys, but namely Herrera, would change positions over the offseason. And let me pull it up just so I see what I'm at. Ollie has said we've toyed with it. I think there's a bigger discussion there as far as what's coming and what makes the most sense big picture. I think that's something there should be a real conversation around. But so they're not 100% committed, but I'm paraphrasing to be clear. Not there yet. They're not there yet with Herrera. And I think they want to see if there's anything they can fix in season before they have a bigger, maybe possible potential position change over the offseason. Because if that's what you're going to ask a player to do, that's an offseason task. That's not a, hey, middle of the season. Same with what they did with Contreras was the right way to do it. So I'm not sure if we'll see Herrera more consistently. I think it will be Pages, depending on when Herrera comes back, depending on health, for the reasons we just mentioned. And I think it is fair to question Herrera's long-term feasibility as a catcher because the Cardinals are toying it over.
All right, I got one stat. Now, I'm not saying that catcher ERA is the end-all be-all, okay? I think it can be very misleading. But I think in this case, it's not misleading because we know things that other people don't know who are just like randomly looking at the stat. You know, I shouldn't say you know, because you've done so much great reporting on this. The pitchers really believe they benefit from having Pages behind the plate. And if the Cardinals don't pitch well, the Cardinals are pretty much doomed, right? So in that case, because they believe in him, they trust him, he calls a great game. He knows how to get guys straightened out in the middle of a game. He's a leader out there, right? All right, catcher ERA this season. This does not include today. Herrera, 5.61. Pozo, 4.40. Pages, 3.96. That's a pretty big difference.
That's pretty big.
Even though I'm saying, I'm not saying it's like the perfect stat, but I've been checking on this one steadily, and it's like there is such a gap between him and the other two guys, especially Herrera. You can't dismiss that as like some kind of junk stat. I don't think it is. Not when we know very well how deeply the pitchers and the manager and the pitching coach feel about Pages being an asset behind the plate. And I'm not going to say they don't care about his blocking ability, but the impact he has on the pitchers, which is a huge deal, right?
I mean,
Anyway.
Did we not learn that from 2 decades of Yadier Molina? Having a trust, and I'm not comparing the two, to be very clear. I'm just saying that the relationship with pitcher to catcher matters. And while we're comparing stats, why don't you go ahead and compare the caught stealing between the two? I'm just kidding. We don't need to do that.
We probably
it's
don't.
0 for Herrera.
I know Pages is still above the major league average for throwout rate.
It is.
So, he's an asset that way too. But yeah, I'd like to see them be able to clean it up a little bit. But and I've come to really admire Pages, even though I realize he's not going to hit all that much. But again, it's essential that this pitching staff perform to whatever their optimum is. It's really essential that they do that. And if there's a catcher behind the plate that brings out the best in that staff, I'm sorry, you got to ride it out. You just have to.
And I think that's what they're going to do. And when you think about the depth the Cardinals have at catcher position, like the one area in their entire organization, they have like a ton of encouraging depth. It's catcher. It makes sense to just kind of ride the season out with the three that you have and evaluate over the winter. That's a Heimblum decision on what the next future of the backstops look like. But I do think we should give Pozo some credit here. Bernie, obviously the big walk-off hit on Saturday. and just the most adorable celebration I've ever seen. But if you would have told me in the middle of February that Joel Pozo would be your most impactful right-handed bat off the bench, I would have said, who the hell is that? Because he wasn't even on the roster or in the organization until March, and he was very much just signed as an emergency because Jimmy Crooks they didn't think was ready. A lot of the stuff that we talked about, not yet quite major league ready. So they signed kind of a stopgap solution in Pozo, and he was so far down on the depth. Well, they liked him. He didn't even crack my top 40 to watch in the organization. Shows how much I know. Once again, we're learning from this podcast. I don't know anything. Because here he is now, and he is indeed your best right-handed bat off the bench. Even with the JC here, if you're looking for power and contact, I mean, look, Pozo doesn't even need to go to hitters' meetings. They probably are just like, you can take this one off.
Right.
You know that you can put the ball in play. And a good team has a team of role players. And there's been a lot of clamor, rightfully so, about the Cardinals bench. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but if you're looking for a right-handed bat off the bench that's going to put the ball in play, they have found that consistently in Pozo. It was really nice to see him get rewarded in Saturday's walk-off win. He's done a nice job.
When he comes off the bench, all right, this has nothing to do with him starting. When he enters a game as a substitute, right, he's hitting 455.
That's pretty good.
And that's up to date because he started today, so it doesn't apply to today. 455. And he's driven in like 11 or 12 at bats. He's driven in like 5 runs. I mean, it's a small sample, but that's all we have to work with because it's a very narrow thing we're looking at. Okay, what does he mean to the Cardinals as a guy who can come off the bench and get a hit, right? And you trust him to just not swing and miss and just put the ball in play. He's hitting 455 when he comes off the bench and enters a game. I mean, he's the best role player they have. Agreed.
And he's the third catcher.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, this whole idea, and again, I'm going back to this a minute because I see people saying, well, Pozo's great, but you really shouldn't be carrying 3 catchers. So Herrera and Pages, I guess, is what they're saying. No, Pozo, because your bench is so weak, his strength as a bench player demands that he stay here because who else would fulfill that role, right?
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And I think that makes a ton of sense when you put it that way. Yes, his position is catcher. Yes, from a technicality standpoint, the Cardinals have 3, maybe even 4, but Contreras is very clearly not a catcher anymore.
Right.
But if you're talking about role play and usage, if you have a right-handed bench bat that's hitting 455, perfect. Take it. I don't care what he plays.
Case closed. We rest our case.
Exactly. So, all right, Bernie, we'll wrap this one up here because there's just so much fun baseball ahead of us. Like I said earlier, Cardinal Territory, Northside Territory crossover. That will be on Tuesday. Just a lot going on, travel from both ends. So we couldn't get that up tomorrow. We'll have some Cardinals Cubs preview in the Athletic as well. Bernie, what do you have working on?
Just doing my usual daily, what I do every day, which is a lot. I can't wait to watch the series. And I don't know if the Cardinals will get a split or, I think a split's reasonable, but I'm not settling for it. By the way, let me just do this real quick. My good friend, Will Leach, is out with a book and this book is getting rave reviews. In fact, it's going to be turned into a Hollywood film.
Oh, wow.
Lloyd McNeil's Last Ride. And the only reason I'm plugging this because he's my Seeing Red podcast partner and he writes for everybody. You see him pop up on MLB Network a lot too. He's going to be at Left Bank Books in the Central West End on Thursday night. Is after the day game at 7:00. And I'm sort of the host of the event. And we've been joking. So, people aren't going to ask, even though your book's getting rave reviews, no one's going to want. How many people want to ask you about your book? Like 3 people. They're going to ask about the Cardinals and the Cubs. So anyway, for people in the St. Louis area who might be interested in coming down and meeting Will and getting a book, the book is unbelievable. I'm not just saying that because he's my friend. It is great. They had like 5 Hollywood studios fighting over this. for the film rights. So
Well,
anyway,
now I'm super excited because I'm a Central West End girl, and Left Bank Books is my favorite bookstore in town. So I will try my best to get there because that sounds great.
he's a huge fan of you, Katie. Well,
I'm a huge fan of you and Will, so I'm glad we can all be friends and coexist.
Well, thanks for letting me plug that, but it was
Yeah,
for
of
a good
course.
reason because we're making an appearance. Yeah.
10 out of 10 would recommend. And now I have a new book to buy, so that's exciting. What else is exciting? The Cubbies finally coming to town. 4 games. I'm with you, Bernie. A split is not the end of the world, but personally, I'm not settling for it. If they split, like, okay, cool. Could be a lot worse, obviously. But taking 3 of 4 from Chicago would do wonders for morale. And then we're having a serious conversation about this team heading into July, which will be an insane month, no matter what direction it goes. So lots to look forward to here in Cardinals land. We'll break it all down for you at Cardinal Territory. For Bernie, I'm Katie. Thanks for watching. We'll talk next week.